Hello, all. This is Dr. Dave Maslach talking to you about reciprocity.com. The E is written with a 3. And in this particular video, I want to talk about how do you actually choose an industry for your research topic, for whether it's graduate school or a PhD or whatever it is. It's important to think about the industry or context of the thing that you're actually going to study in. And there's a lot of different reasons for this, but really it's just sort of practical. If you are studying a particular industry and you keep sort of pushing forward at that particular industry, then you get known in that industry and you might get opportunities in the future, whether it is doing research and you get extra data in that area or something like that, or maybe you get executive teaching and then you can do a little bit, you can earn a little bit more money from different opportunities, or maybe you do consulting. It doesn't necessarily matter. It's important to sort of choose the context or the industry that you're thinking about. And lots of people, it doesn't matter what particular field you're in, whether it's biology, whether it's industrial psychology, or whether it's physics, it doesn't matter. You kind of have to think about the industry when you are pursuing your research topic, right? So you choose the thing that you want to do, and you can choose the industry in which it's sort of situated and have industrial applications for that. So mathematics, you can choose the particular sort of math problems that are suitable for a particular industry. And how might you actually do this in terms of going forward, and what are sort of some suggested routes in terms of studying the problems in that particular industry? So the first thing that I would do is go just talk to managers and executives in multiple industries and try to find out the problems that they have. So for example, you might go talk to people that are in the oil and gas industry, for example, or you go talk to people that are in the construction industry, or maybe go into the financial industry, whatever it is. You can find problems that are really interesting in all of those, and that they're all going to be unique and different. So for example, you might actually apply some of the mathematics that you learn in partial differential equations or something like that in the oil and gas industry and create some sort of simulation for them, or you could do the exact same thing and do it within the financial sector and create some sort of really interesting applications in the financial sector. It's been very, very hot in terms of in terms of mathematical research in that area and sort of going forward. They do have a lot of things that are going on in any kind of industry, even its pharmaceutical industry. So just talk to executives and find out what the problems that they have, and just kind of go across the board and find something that maybe resonates with you. And it doesn't necessarily matter who you're talking to. Just briefly talk to them, have a conversation, maybe take them out for coffee, and then you will actually find something that is interesting going forward. Another thing that's really important for you, so the second thing for you to think about with this, is you have to have sort of a cross between what's going on with a theoretical point of view and have sort of theoretical understanding of what's going on. That's the practice. That's the academic application that you're going to have to do in any PhD, any graduate research. You're going to have to think about the theory that you're contributing to, but then as well as the practical implications. And so that's where sometimes the industry suits itself for the practical implications from what you actually have. And so you choose the industry based on, so if you're looking at some sort of interesting problem, maybe it's in physics and it makes sense to sort of solve that problem and apply it within one particular industrial sector, well then it just kind of comes out from that, and that makes a lot of sense to do that going forward. So that's an important thing, is just think about the industrial applications from the theoretical understanding that you actually have. So maybe it is aerospace, for example. If you have some sort of industrial application within the aerospace industry, then you can target that industry going forward for additional opportunities. Now, a third thing that you can look for, and I did this sort of practically, there's a reason why I did the medical device industry. I studied medical devices and the software industry. I really like the software industry. It's kind of interesting. There's lots of stuff to understand in those particular areas. The reason is you're just looking for available data. And so you can go onto government websites and look for data that is available. And there's lots of data available now, particularly within the United States. A lot of data is presented in a very nice way. You can go to data.gov is one particular website. You can go into You can go look into stuff about the pharmaceutical industry. There's stuff about hospitals. If you go and actually, if you just look at some of the research articles in different areas, you can often see where their data is coming from by just looking at the settings and data area, and you can download those data sets. Sometimes you have to pay for those particular data sets. That might be, if you're starting out, I might not recommend that unless you have money to download those data sets. I think the hospital one, for example, and I can't quite, it's the Hospital Association, I believe, data set. And lots of people use this to get information on physicians. And now a lot of stuff is being publicly disclosed in terms of how much money physicians are making, or maybe in the medical device industry and pharmaceutical industry. There's some really interesting data on how much how much money people are actually making based on the clinical trials that they're doing and stuff. There's really interesting stuff out there, and just look for available data, and that can really help you out. So one caveat that I just recently found out in the last month is that if you're thinking about scraping data off the internet from different websites in terms of your research going forward, a lot of journal publications are now, they might actually be asking you to do much more rigorous, dealings with the terms and conditions for each website. So a lot of websites that might actually be not within the terms and conditions of their particular websites that they're doing. So if you're doing Amazon scraping, for example, I don't think that is a legitimate thing for you to do, is scrape Amazon websites. IMDb is another one that lots of people use to understand the entertainment industry, for example, if you're thinking of going into the entertainment industry. And it might not be legitimate anymore. And so you just have to be careful in terms of thinking about research publications in the future, making sure that you're complying with the terms and conditions. But if you're going to government websites, you can get tons of stuff, or within business schools. So for me, a lot of business schools use CRISP and CopyStat. ExecuComp is another one to get data on firms within those particular industries. You can look at those. They're great sort of resources for anybody that's doing that. Hoovers is another one. You can get information and interesting projects that people are doing in all sorts of different industries around the world. So and another important thing that you should be considering when you are doing your research or thinking about a particular industry for your research in graduate school, whether it's a PhD or doing your master's, is the program that you apply to, or the location that you're applying to, actually often has ties with particular industries. So for example, if you go to the University of Texas, you're probably going to have some ties with the oil and gas industry. So before you actually choose a PhD program or graduate school program, you might want to think about the industry that you want to do research on. So if you're thinking about doing research in oil and gas, well then go to the University of Texas, right? So it makes sense if you're thinking about pharmaceuticals or medical devices, Boston area, any of those universities are going to be ripe for that. If you're thinking about sort of financial services, you can look at, New York, Columbia, and NYU. They have very strong ties. A lot of the research goes within the financial services industry. I mean, there's all sorts of things all around the world, and across North America where you can look at these. So if you're looking at oil and gas extraction, again, you can look at Alberta, right? University of Alberta in Canada has got some really cool stuff with the tar sands that are there. And so there's all sorts of things that you can apply. Within Florida, you can think about, the aerospace industry, for example. There is a pretty strong aerospace industry within Florida, and the entertainment industry in terms of theme parks and things like that. So you can look at any particular location. And that would be, I definitely would consider that if you're thinking about doing a PhD or thinking of doing any particular graduate school research, is where do you want to sort of situate yourself in the future, and what do you want to go into? So if you want to stay in, so for example, I'm from Northern Ontario, well then you might want to pick a school that is really emphasizes or has strong connections with pulp and paper and mining, for example. And then you're more likely to go into those particular places in the future in terms of whether it is an academic job or an industry job. You're going to be much more easier to get into those areas, because that's really what people do in those particular areas, right? So you want to choose the school that make sense in terms of the industry that you are wanting to do. And you just have to simply look at the industrial clusters that are around that particular school, and you will come up with them, right? So University of Berkeley and Stanford and stuff, guess what they're doing? They're doing a lot of biotech, and they're doing a lot of stuff that happens in Silicon Valley, right? Like venture capital and doing research on all those kind of things. The software industry, for example, there's tons of stuff that's going on in that particular area. So that's what you want to think about in terms of going forward. If you want to do research on Boeing and you want to start creating relationships with Boeing, so for example, go to Seattle, right? Go to one of the universities to do your research in Seattle area, and this will happen around the world. It doesn't matter what particular country that you're in. So, for example, you want to do research on wines and spirits. Well, maybe you want to go to France, for example. You might have a better luck in terms of building relationships with people in those particular areas. Now, why is that the case? The reason is that those people are just close by, and you can talk to those managers in much more easier. And those people are going to be coming in. The undergraduates are going to be going into that industry. So you can build connections much more easier that way. And that would be a particular way that I would choose the industry that you want to go into, is just look at the school that you're applying to, and that makes a nice way to get into that particular industry. So that's some ways to look into it. So talk to some managers, for example, across many different areas. Look what their interesting problems they're dealing with. Look for available data, easily available data. Go to the schools where there's industrial clusters, is an actual term that you can look into, where there's industrial clusters that are located in a particular industry that you are thinking or you find interesting, and that will get you closer to that particular industry that you want to go into, right? And then the last thing to think about is the sort of theoretical application that you are doing, or if you're interested in some sort of theory, then you look for the theoretical application of that particular theory. So if you like this video, give me a thumbs up and do subscribe to the YouTube channel. I do appreciate it. All right, take care. Bye.